and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Chairman Martin.
Here.
Counselor Elliott.
Here.
Counselor Noon.
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. This is another in a series of monthly meetings that the Public Safety Subcommittee has been convening. We do have a number of topics I've scheduled for the agenda this night. I don't know if we'll get to them all, but certainly we should start. The first item is in response to a motion filed by Councilor Rita Mercier that requesting a meeting to discuss city violence issues. So I don't know, Councilor Mercier, if you wanted to have anything to say, and then I would recognize the city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very happy that you called and convened this meeting to discuss a very serious topic that is happening in our city quite on a regular basis now. 10 incidents in the city. I mean, one would be too many. Now we have 10, and I'm very grateful. Having said that, the purpose of my motion really wasn't to have a public safety subcommittee. I likened this motion that I made to some years ago when past administrations, we had many incidents involving the gangs, and it was getting out of control. So I made a motion at the time that we have some sort of a summit to get everybody together on the same page to develop strategy and plans and put things in place to stop it. I know it wouldn't be stopped completely, but to try to, leave it at its bare minimum. And we had a very effective meeting down at the federal building, and we had the district attorney, Jerry Leone, we had members of the governor's task force, we had the police, we had state reps, we had everybody there. This is similar to what I'm saying because I think we have a serious situation that's getting out of control. And although I appreciate the fact we're holding this meeting, to try to figure it out in an hour with other things you have on the agenda, to me, just doesn't cut it. This is a start. I'm saying this is a start. We need to continue this further because what we have in mind and through this motion is not going to satisfy what I want to be done. But having said that, I'm glad that everybody came together. We have the superintendent here, members of the deputy chiefs and members of the police department, neighborhood groups, planning department. We need to do this on a bigger scale. We need to get District Attorney Marion Ryan on board with members of the governor's task force. The reason I say this is because, and I'm not saying that we're psychic, that we know what's going to happen. And I heard the chief this morning on the radio say that the incident that happened on Salem Street where 2 people got shot, she had a full complement of police officers. So I'm not saying that I'm blaming anybody, absolutely not. But we're trying to come together to establish goals, a plan, because what we have in this city is a beautiful city with many people that came on board to make this a better place. The marketing of this city, the neighborhood groups that are watchdogs in every corner of this city, and to have these incidents occur tarnishes the image of this city. So when we are asked, how are you going to bring businesses here? How are you going to bring residents here? We're not going to be bringing anybody here if we have this outrage that's taken place in the city. Many years ago, you had an altercation. People were fist fighting each other. 3 days later, they became friends. Then it revolved into like, I'll take a bat, I'll hit you. Today, it's a gun. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to kill you. What we have here is a very serious problem, be it gangs, be it drugs. And I know that it's sad to say that, we hate to see people get shot, but I'm not going to whitewash this and sugarcoat it. People are getting hurt because they're ripping off drug dealers. This is what's happening in this city. I know people don't want to say it. I'm going to say it. I think we have a very serious issue. We're not sweeping it under the carpet. This could happen anywhere else. I know. I don't live anywhere else. I live in this city. I don't want to ride through any section of the city and have this fear that maybe there's going to be an altercation and I'm going to get shot. I had a call this evening from a gentleman in South Lowell. People are randomly targeting this intermittently targeting this particular house. Why are they doing that? Is it a drug house? Is there something going on? We need to minimize the violence. Will we stop it completely? Absolutely not. Just as the tide ebbs and flows, you can't stop homelessness completely, you can't stop poverty, and you cannot stop the violence, but you can put it at a minimum. And that's what the purpose of the motion is to do. Put our heads together and strategize and form goals and what are we going to do. And, you know, what we really need in this city is not another building with artists and live workspace. You need another building that can target and desensitize the people that are on drugs. We need to get a methadone clinic in the city immediately to help squash some of the problems that have taken place here. There's a lot of work that has to be done, because if they're not being fixed or helped or whatever, they're going to be inside of cars breaking in for the drug money. It's all about the drugs, and we got to face that and figure out what are we going to do. I just don't know. I know that you ask different candidates, would you support hiring new police officers? Everybody says yes, yes we will. But is that the problem? Is that the problem? You can have an army of police, but if the drugs are becoming rampant and we're not nipping that at the bud, we're going to have a serious problem. So this motion is to try to continue this. This should not be the last of this meeting. I know you get many things on your plate with the agenda, but we need to form it at a higher level with more people involved and have goals and a plan in place as to what we're going to do. And I want that to happen. Mr. Manager, I hope that you know, this is a start. I want to continue this. I don't want to have to be under a time constraint that in 25 minutes or whatever, we have a city council meeting. This isn't cutting it. This is a start, I hope, and this is what I want to continue. So I just want to say one more thing, that I did receive an email today. I think we all received it. This is an example. A woman downtown, she left her building and went into the parking garage all by herself. Two people met her there, and they said, do you have an AAA card? We're stuck, we need gas. Do you have a AAA card? She said, no, I don't. He said, then do you have any money? This is a frightening situation when someone is going home and it's getting darker now and they're approached all alone by two people. Luckily, they didn't hurt her or rob her or whatever, but these are things that are happening in this city, that panhandlers are out there. There's so many things happening. There's so much crime, the violence, the shooting. You'll hear from the neighborhood groups, 10 incidents, it's 9 too many, 9 too many. So thank you for letting me speak. I'll give the floor to somebody else. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Can I speak first, please?
All right. Well, she'd asked the manager a question, but
all
go
right.
ahead.
It's okay.
Councilor Elliott.
If you want to answer the question, I'm sorry, I just wanted
Go
to
ahead,
speak
Councilor.
before. I completely agree with her sentiments, and I see that we have a presentation in front of us. I'd like to hear from the public first before they come down here. More often than not, they sit through, the presentation, and, they're sort of, heard last. So that was the first thing that I want to say. I also wanted to state, this is my home. It's the home of my children. It's the home of my family. It's a home to 106,000 people in the city. And I see some statistics here, and for comparative purposes. I don't want this to be minimized at all whatsoever. I mean, quite frankly, this is nice to see, but I don't really want to hear a message that, look, this is what other communities are, and this is where Lowell's at, comparatively speaking. We hear from neighborhood leaders. I hear from my neighbors. I hear from people all over the city. First of all, it's not the message that we want to be sending, and I believe everything in this city, from economic development to families wanting to locate here, flows from public safety, and I don't believe we are doing our job. I think we have to not just step it up a little bit, I think we need to step it up significantly. Explanations, there's a reason for this, shooting, there's a reason for that shooting. It's a random act. There are explanations, but the public in general, the public at large, they don't want to hear about it. They want to know that they can go out, that their kids are safe, that they are safe, and they're safe in their neighborhoods. And I don't feel that, quite frankly. And I don't think the people in the city are. So, Council Mercia mentioned, we need an army. We don't, is an army going to take, is that what it's going to take? Whatever it takes. Maybe it will take an army of the people in the city with a police force, a larger police force. I mean, I can remember years ago sitting through meeting after meeting with Commissioner Davis and the correlation between more officers and less crime. And I believe that makes sense. Is it going to solve all the problems with community policing and people getting involved and neighborhood leaders and residents getting responses to each and every time when they call the police department? Yes, I do. So, I appreciate this. I think Lowell, we worry about Lowell and what we have to do to address the escalation of violent crimes in this city. And I said it last night, I'll say it again. Send a message that we're serious. That we're serious about getting a handle on this. It's not just going to pass after 1 week. It's not just going to pass after a couple of weeks, that we're going to put resources and that we're going to get a handle on a major problem in the city that I don't believe that we have a handle on right now. Thank you.
So what's the wish of the subcommittee then?
Well, I had suggested that we have people from the public that come down consistently, and maybe we'd like to hear from them beforehand, unless they are not interested.
All right, invite members of the public who want to speak. Just come to the podium. If you could give your name and address. There is a sign-up sheet, too, that I would just ask you to sign so we could include your name in the minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bill Daly. I live at Floyd Street. One of my suggestions, I says, why don't we do something about all these slumlords in the city? Contact the State House, but I think they're a joke anyways. Unless they, you vote what the, Speaker of the House or Senate President tells you to vote, that's the way they vote. But something has to be done about all the illegals that are coming into the city, the slumlords. I don't care if you have, like you say, an army of cops. I says they're like cockroaches. They'll be in the house, the cops go by, they're coming out. You can do whatever you want. I said, they can only be in so many places. Something has to be done. When I was growing up, like I told you all before, I've been here all my life, we never had resource officers in the schools. Now you have 5 of them or more. What's the reason? Gang affiliation. You can sugarcoat it, you can, whatever you want to do. You have all these subcommittee meetings, but unless you do something serious, you have the easy part, you talk about it, you don't do anything. You should be pressuring the State House, make some laws. These kids that are in there causing all these problems, affecting our kids. Most of the school teachers will tell you they spend half their time trying to control the classrooms. That shouldn't be. Our kids are losing out because this state is so liberal. Come on here, we'll give you everything you want for nothing, and then they send them to school, which we pay for. This city, and you see the problems. If you start doing something about all the illegal immigrants, slumlords, the housing, there's a start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Marson, 200 Market Street. I'm the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and I do come down here quite often. But I would actually like to stick to the positive part of this meeting, and that is you're having the meeting. Bad things do happen. The police do their job. The city council and the administration coming together to just get the message out that this is not acceptable in this city. Even one thing like this that happens, it's not going to be acceptable to us. And we're going to do everything that we can, and we're going to put whatever resources we need towards making sure that that these things don't recur. So to me, this is a really positive thing. You can't, rather than wait and just stand around and say, well, it's not a big deal, it's a city, there's a lot of people. Every one of these incidents counts. It counts, it makes a bad impression on the city. And even though there's a tiny number of them, if we all stand up and say even that small number is too much, then that's a positive message to the people who live here. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Taya Dixon-Mullane. I'm the president of Lower Highlands Neighborhood Group, and I'm also here all the time. I just wanted to share with you a conversation I had about a week and a half ago with a neighbor. And I was standing outside. It was about 9 o'clock at night talking to my next-door neighbor. She was outside with her son, who's a student at UMass Lowell, graduated from Lowell High. So we're outside talking, and, we're talking about, the shootings that have happened. And she says to me, well, she's lived here for 25 years, raised her family here. She said, well, Lowell's not as bad as it used to be. We don't have we used to have drive-bys all the time. It used to be really bad. It's not as bad as it used to be. And then all of a sudden we hear click, click, click. She runs in the house. She's like, I got to get inside. That sounded like gunshots. So this is, I always like to remind you what it's like to live in some of the neighborhoods that are directly affected by the gun violence. But that's the kind of attitude a lot of neighbors and residents have, is that, well, it's not as bad as it used to be, but you still run indoors when you think you hear gunshots. And no one should live like this. And this just shows you the kind of apathy. It's not that people don't care, it's that they've given up caring because they don't feel like anyone's listening. And I think, I do agree, we do need more police officers. We should have a larger contingent of police officers. I'm not speaking on behalf of the neighborhood group, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, a resident, 63 South Loring Street. But I can tell you that one of the things we need to do as a city is get the community back involved in this issue. And I think all neighborhood groups try to do this, but I think it takes the leadership of the city council and the city administration to create some sort of focus on this issue, because if that's sort of the attitude that many of my neighbors have, that's just not where we should be as a city. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Joanne DeVries. I live at 164 Parker Street, and this is Chloe. I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to be brief because I'm going to echo a lot of the sentiments and comments that have already been said tonight. I bought a house in Lowell 8 years ago with my husband. We came to Lowell because there was a lot to offer, and we want to continue to be valuable and contributing residents of the city of Lowell. But to be quite frank, we're ready to leave, and we would have left if we wouldn't take such a loss on the sale of our home. So, I'm not going to repeat what everyone else said. I am committed to the city of Lowell. I am committed to contributing to the safety of the city, and I'd like to be a part of the solution. So please ask the residents to be a part of the solution. We're here to help, but some action has to be taken. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street in Lowell. I sit on the board for the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, and I'm the president of the Lowell Citywide Neighborhood Council. We've had lots of meetings, and we've had lots of stat reports. Bodies here, bodies there, who's there, and all that. We've heard it all. We've had meetings with the DA, the sheriff's been here, the senator's been here, somebody from the congressional office has been here, all our state reps have been here. But you know what? Meetings aren't going to solve this problem. Somebody's got to kick into second gear. Whatever we're doing right now is not working. I know we had a gang unit. Do we still have a gang unit? Is it as active as it used to be? or is it on hold? That would be one of my questions. And another thing too is, in the past, which I don't know why, but they stopped, if there was a particular house or area and this was a trouble spot and they knew it was a trouble spot, then they would target it. Between building inspectors, health inspectors, and fire code inspectors, the druggies would relocate downriver. Another thing too is, we really want to see our police officers visible in our neighborhoods. And we're not seeing that. They're out there, I'm sure. We see them at traffic time at the VFW and Bridge because they're doing their traffic stops, and that works for me. But not seeing them other times. We need them to be visible. We want to see the police officers over where the kids are playing basketball. We want them stopping by, either in the car or on the motorcycle, or if they're walking. They need to connect with the neighborhood, and that connection isn't the way it used to be. Somebody was at my house today and said to me, "What's going on in Lowell?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "My brother-in-law called me from Billerica." He said, "What's with Lowell? You having a lot of problems there? What's with the crime?" And I realized you're risking your life to protect us. And then you arrest somebody. And then we go to the court system. We don't have enough time to discuss that tonight. But, I mean, there's got to be consequences. You're all here tonight sitting here, and you're not sitting in a jail cell because somebody straightened you out when you were a kid, and you knew that if you stepped out of line, there was a consequence. So you got the message right away, you're not going to step out of line a second time. That's not happening. It's just not happening. Somebody's got to crack down. I know we don't do flogging and chain gangs anymore, but we might have to work our way back to it if we can't straighten it out. We need your help. And we need to help each other. We need to watch out for each other. If you're a good neighbor and you see something that doesn't look right, you pick up the phone and call in. You don't just sit back and say, "Oh my, too bad, so sad." We appreciate all your time and all your hard work. Don't give up on us. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Mr. Manager, do you have any remarks?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I have a number of different remarks, and I want to put it together in a comprehensible way. Let me first off assure the public and assure the City Council, members of the subcommittee and the entire City Council, that the police department and the administration do not accept or take any of these incidents for granted and write it off as just being inevitable. Our police department takes every single incident very seriously. We do not find it acceptable. The Councilor Mercier mentioned that it's a constant, I think this was her term, it was a constant battle. And it is a constant battle. I think whether we like it or not, here in the city of Lowell, other cities, other towns across the Commonwealth and across the country have these incidents. And particularly as they relate to drugs and guns and violence in general. I think we've made important progress. People may not want to hear that, but I think that the numbers speak for themselves. And I think it is important, particularly if we are out there trying to show what a great city that we have here, that we point to the successes that we have. Now, that doesn't mean we rest on our laurels. It doesn't mean that we step back and say, well, we solved that problem, because clearly, I think Councilor Mercier said there were 10 shootings, and that's 9 too many. I think it's 10 too many. We shouldn't accept any shootings as being acceptable, and that we have to take the necessary actions. I don't know if we necessarily need more officers. We are exploring a number of different ideas along those lines to put more resources out there. I do want to thank the City Council for supporting the additional overtime in this year's budget. We think that targeted approach of using overtime and smart policing, which is the trend really here in the city as well as nationally, that you dedicate your resources in a smart and effective way rather than just a sort of a blanket approach, that you do it very targeted, very specific. We have been doing that, and I know that a year ago we had increased the overtime budget, and the City Council actually had rejected that overtime budget. Fortunately, we were able to come back and put it back in, and it did receive the necessary votes. I believe it received 6 votes at that time. So we did put the resources in last year for overtime. We increased that again this year. I'm actually working with the superintendent and the deputies on a number of other alternatives that we probably will be coming back to the City Council in the next week or two with additional supplemental appropriation for more resources to put towards public safety in our police department. Because we would like to sort of step up in a number of different areas. Specifically, and you'll hear more from the superintendent on this, but we do have 11 new recruits coming in. They are going to be phased in, and we are going to put them out in the neighborhoods. That's the plan. We're also looking to increase our overall visibility in the neighborhood with some additional targeted overtime money, so that we have more people out there, out and about, where they can be seen and see things. But I do think that, I heard a number of the neighborhood leaders, and I really appreciate the work that they do, but I know I heard a number of them say that they want to be part of the solution. And I'd be interested in what their ideas are for being part of the solution. Certainly, their idea of having more police being visible is an idea that we're very interested in pursuing. As I say, we're going to be coming up with some different strategies to make that happen between the new recruits and some other resources that we have coming into the city, and additional resources I'll be looking for from the City Council. But I'd be curious as to what other ideas they might have. We do have a gang unit. The superintendent will speak to that. We do target problem properties. We have been doing it throughout the last number of years, and we've stepped that up with the Problem Property Task Force that Councilor Laurie advocated, but that's been ongoing. We do all of those things, and I think the numbers speak for themselves, but again, it's not enough. We need to get those numbers down to 0 in each one of those cases. So we are going to be launching a new public safety campaign of essentially what Anne-Marie Page mentioned, of if you see something, say something. We depend upon our neighborhoods, we depend upon our residents. They have to be part of the solution to address this. We do have a cooperative relationship with the DA. Marion Ryan actually is going to be here all day on Thursday at several different events working with us. We do have our youth development gang task force that meets on a monthly basis with all of our partners. We do participate with other law enforcement agencies on a regular basis, and the superintendent can speak to that as well. So those are my opening remarks. I'm not sure how they weren't as organized perhaps as I would like, other than to say that we don't find anything acceptable unless it's 0. I do believe that there are incidents in the city that have to be addressed, but generally speaking, Lowell is a safe community. I want to assure people of that, but we need to do more, and we're intent upon doing that more. So at that point, I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah, push it down.
No, I thought he's raising his hand. I don't know.
Well, Counselor, you
Sure, I just have a quick question. I was on the phone yesterday with the city manager. With the federal government shutdown, I do know we, or the Lowell Police, have always had a relationship with DEA and the FBI. And I guess my first question will be, and I'll finish up the questions, has that been affected with the shutdown? But 2, I've been reading the past couple of months, many states are legalizing marijuana, and the federal government seems to have withdrawn its desire, from what I'm reading, to fight it. Now, it's also my understanding in Lowell, much of the drug fight is over marijuana. And I could be getting information wrong, but it is quite potent now and quite pricey. Is there any way we could work with the government or let them know that if they are falling back on their fight on marijuana in cities like Lowell, it's become a major problem, and we may need some help from the government? Thank you.
Okay, Chief, if you have an answer to that, or if
Yes.
you want to begin with...
Actually, I can respond to that because I've already made some inquiries specifically around marijuana, and it seems that the marijuana as a drug is not significantly on the radar screen based on other needs. So the heroin problem, the cocaine, and certainly the pills, the Oxycontins and such, the opiates are definitely much more of the focus of the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration. Marijuana we're probably not going to get a lot of support around marijuana investigations, so we'll have to approach that from a more local, statewide resources and our own local task force agencies. So that specifically with regard to marijuana, but I do agree, you're absolutely correct. So much of the violence that we're seeing in the city has been associated with the marijuana trade because it has become so lucrative. And we're seeing that is a significant shift, if you will, in the last 5 to 10 years. The gang activity in the city, for those of you that we've all been here for a while, we recall that 15 years ago, the problem that we had with gang members in the city were teenagers, largely committing significant acts of violence in the late afternoon, early evening hours. That is not what we're seeing today. The gang issue that we're dealing with is significantly changed. The individuals involved are adults with lengthy criminal records, so we're dealing with people more in the 30s as opposed to the teens. But many of those same people that were around 15 years ago, they're no longer largely committing random street acts of violence because someone's on the wrong street or wearing the wrong color clothing. They've shifted their focus for those that are still actively involved in a criminal lifestyle, and they appear to be more involved in criminal enterprise. So maybe it's gaming, but it's certainly the drug trade. And they know that they need to be a little bit more low-key in their style of doing business. But it's a challenge for us because when a number of initiatives formed around the gang violence of 10 to 15 years ago, and the advantage to dealing with teenagers is that you have both their age that works in your favor so that there's additional controls that can be put in place. They fall under the control of Department of Children and Families, or at the time, DSS, Department of Social Services. They have significant restrictions that can be put on them by the courts. They can be placed in foster homes. If their home life is not stable, they can be placed elsewhere to live, and the court can require them to stay there. And certainly you also have the oversight of the schools. The schools where they spend a significant part of their day, they become a partner in terms of strategizing how to keep these kids out of trouble and so forth. So it seemed like there were a lot more strategies that we could rely on, or entities that had some responsibility for oversight of teenage children. As they've aged out of the system, it becomes more challenging to address their issues. Now they're adults, they're in their 30s, they're making choices. You don't have the same social service programs where if they're not under the conditions of the court or on some sort of parole oversight, they're adults, and many of them are still choosing to commit crimes and live a criminal lifestyle. So we can't control where they live and so forth. So it's a little bit different. The reason why we look at the root causes, we have to, in order to devise a strategy, you have to understand what's causing the crime, what's driving it. So when we say that these individuals are known to each other, we don't say that in an effort to minimize the safety on the streets of Lowell. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to, and we also can't come out in the hours after a serious incident and say that the victim is a serious criminal. Because someone is a criminal does not justify the fact that they were shot either. So we have to respect that, and we can't always come out and say that we know that they were leading a criminal lifestyle, they were involved in a criminal enterprise, and that's what brought about the altercation that day, and that's what resulted in them getting shot. But the reality is, if I talk in general terms, I think that every one of the shooting incidents that we've had this year, the victims have been well known to the police department. So that is what we're talking about. But again, the other common denominator that we encounter is most of the victims and the witnesses don't choose to cooperate with the police when we respond. So quite often we're spent a considerable amount of time trying to gather evidence, and we don't really have anybody that's willing to talk to us. So it is a challenge for us. In terms of identifying trends and where do we put the resources and so forth, we have to analyze who's involved in these events and when are they occurring, and how best can we deploy our resources to try to have the best impact on these crimes. So I have other folks here with me today that I'd just like to, for those that may not know everyone, I think you know both deputies, Deputy Bill Taylor and Deputy Arthur Ryan. Behind me I have Captain Webb, who leads all of our criminal investigations. Next to him is Captain Kelly Richardson, who's our Public Information Officer. And I have Marianne Bellata, Director of Research and Development for the Police Department. And Robin Smith, our Senior Crime Analyst, who has been with us for a number of years and has spent a lot of time helping to prepare the information for today. And Sergeant Tom Lombard, who oversees our Crime Analysis Unit. And the reason I've asked them to come today is they did help me. They all worked on this presentation tonight, and they all are committed to developing a strategy that is going to stop this violence and to make things safer in the city. We believe strongly that we have to use analysis. Everything that we do should be data-driven. It's a more effective use of the money that you do give us. It's why we argue all the time that, as the manager said, that overtime is a bit more effective tool for us, because we can put it exactly where it's needed. We've been able to do an awful lot with the $100,000 that was originally given to us for the downtown disorder issues. Even though we got a budget this year of general overtime, we've still taken an allotment of money, and on paper we track it specifically for the downtown. And so what we're going to do moving forward is take another allotment of money out of the remaining overtime and allocate it specifically for the sectors, the neighborhoods. And we're going to allocate resources, and we're going to use that money, and we're going to track it. And should we need more money, or should we make a subsequent report down the road, we'll be able to tell you how we spent the money and what the outcome was. So we can track it quite easily. But it's a very effective use of overtime. We will always, if you want to give us more police officers, we will happily accept them, and we will find a use for them. But we can use overtime much more strategically. And we may not need somebody working at 6 p.m., but we might need them working at 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And we can put them out there specifically during that time. The challenge with the current trend of violence is to come up with that same sort of analysis and data to help us figure out where is it best to put the officers. It's easier when you're talking about disorder in the downtown. It's easier to identify a small geographic area. That's where the bars are. That's where we've had the calls, the disturbances, and we know the days of the week and the hours when those disturbances are likely to occur, and we can put the resources there accordingly. So the challenge for us is to figure that out in terms of having the greatest impact on the violent crime. But we may do that by re-energizing or coming up with new strategies in terms of drug investigations. And again, as we said, these individuals may in fact be gang members, but a lot of this is much more likely to be related to the drug trade. So we did prepare some data which we can run through quickly. We don't have to spend a lot of time on the slides, but it might be helpful so you can see where we are this year versus last year. And we did compare ourselves to other communities, not because, again, we're trying to minimize, but you have to put this in context when we're talking about how, I think it's relevant as to where we stand in relation to other communities in Massachusetts. So if you don't mind, I'll run through them, and then I'll talk about more specifically what we're doing about it. Maybe not. Come on, Tom. It's been sleeping too long. All right. We'll figure this out in a second.
Good.
It is on. It's showing me a number on there. Is it off?
Yeah.
Ooh, I touched it. Oh, thank you. Some of these figures that you're going to look at, the ones that compare us to other communities largely, we wanted to look at NIBR's information, which is the data that we report to the federal government. And so you'll see that this data is only through June 30th of this year. We've had 2 murders, both cleared by arrest as of that date. There were 16 total sexual assaults, 4 of those were cleared by arrest. 97 robberies, 23 cleared by arrest, and 175 aggravated assaults, but of those, 110 were cleared by arrest. This is homicides as we compare to other communities. We noted Cambridge, Fall River, Lynn, New Bedford, Springfield, and Worcester. So we're, far less, obviously, than Springfield, and slightly less than Worcester. These are sexual assaults, 16 in Lowell as of June 30th. You can see, again, other communities with higher amounts, but again, not to draw too much attention to those, but that's Lowell is 16. Robbery comparison, we had 97 robberies up to June 30th. Again, we fall mostly below the other communities. Aggravated assault comparison, Lowell with 175, you can see that we're far below most of the other communities. So again, it's fairly significant, and a lot of the aggravated assaults that you're seeing there would be attributed to domestic violence, but not entirely. These are the warrants so far this year, 2012 versus 2013. We've arrested 1,184 individuals, but cleared 1,792 warrants in the process. So we're aggressively out there targeting mostly felons, but any individuals that we're able to locate to clear these warrants. These are wanted individuals. So. This is a five-year trend, which I think is important to look at. This is just for the city of Lowell, and this includes data up through October 7th. So this is data through yesterday. So you can see, total homicides, but if you look at the year-to-date, so we've got total homicides being 16 total over the years, 5 being gang-related, and gang-related homicides by use of a firearm were also 5. But, 2012 was obviously a good year for us with no homicides, but we've definitely creeped up a little bit since then. This is firearm activity comparison. This is all firearms calls for shots fired. We fully investigate. We think it's important to fully investigate all the shots fired calls. We need to, first of all, not only determine whether it was likely that those were really shots fired, as opposed to fireworks or some other, vehicle noise or something, but it's imperative that when we respond to those, that it's not always clear exactly where the shots might have been fired. If it's late at night, a neighbor hears shots, they call. We have to identify the location where the shots fired. We look to gather evidence. And it's important also to not just do that, but to try to identify who the target or what the target might have been. Was it a particular address that they were firing shots at, a particular vehicle that they were shooting at? Because again, that may help us determine what the root cause was, and also may help us prevent some retaliatory acts of violence that might occur by that potential victim now becoming aggressive towards someone else. So it's very important that we investigate those fully and to try to determine as much as we can, even if there's no individual that's been shot and it's just shots fired. These are firearm-involved incidents for the city of Lowell through yesterday. We had aggravated assaults or armed assaults. We're down 7 from last year at this point, but remember, last year, that was year-to-date. All of 2012, so we're not quite through 2013. So at the present time, we're down slightly on those armed home invasions, and robberies were up slightly at this point. Carjackings were down. Homicides are up. Shots fired or discharging a weapon are actually down at this point from last year. Unlawful possession of a firearm, meaning arrests for unlawful possession of a firearm, are still down at this point from last year. These are actual homicides or non-fatal shootings. So in other words, where a person has actually been shot by the weapon. And these are the counts. 2009, you'll see we were at 22. 2010, we had 14. 2011, 12. 2012, 17. And thus far this year, we're at 16. These are what we believe to be the precipitating causes of the shootings so far for 2013. 1 was domestic related. 3 were both domestic but gang related. So in other words, they had a domestic foundation. There was a fight over, a current or former boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, something like that, but it involved gang related members. 2 were drug related. 2 were drugs and gang related. 1 was retaliation for a prior fight. 5 were gang-related with no other known causes, and 2 were unknown, for a total of 16. Recovered firearms. Our highest point was 2010. We recovered 100 firearms, but that also was the year that we had a rather large investigation in the city that involved a particular gang and the recovery of a lot of weapons and a lot of arrests. So that's a bit of an aberration in that regard, but we've recovered 27 firearms so far this year. These are gang-related incidents so far, or comparison from last year to this year. So total numbers show us slightly down. We're down 15. All right, so if you'd bear with me for a minute, I'd like to talk about what we're doing in response to what you just saw. And so the phases of our strategy are 3-part. We have enforcement, investigative, and prevention. So with respect to the enforcement strategy, we're going to do what we have found to be successful in the recent past in Lowell, and this includes intensive, high-visibility patrols at specific times of the day consistent with data analysis. Motor vehicle enforcement, we feel, is imperative because what we do know is that all of these individuals have transported their guns in their vehicles on the way to and from the scene of the crime. This high-visibility motor vehicle enforcement will be coupled with foot and bicycle patrols in these identified areas. We agree that there's nothing that makes an officer more visible in a neighborhood than foot or bicycle patrols, and it's our challenge to make that happen, but we will make that happen. We will continue to use grant funds as available to help support an increased neighborhood presence. We have some grants in place right now, specifically C-Fire in Centerville, but we have 2 other sources of funds that we're waiting on right now, Shannon funds and a grant from EOPS. And in the grant from EOPS specifically, and as well as Shannon, we specifically requested overtime funds available for foot patrols in the neighborhoods. But in the meantime, as I said, we'll earmark a portion of our overtime money to bridge the gap between the time from now till we receive those overtime funds. We want increased officers in the sectors will serve as a vital communication link between the community and the police department. And for those that remember how it was when we had the precincts and the officers in the neighborhoods, and I certainly know that you do, Anne Marie, we all do. But the value to those officers being connected to the community was that it enabled us to identify problem locations or problem individuals before the crime spree seemed to escalate. So we seem to have a better opportunity to nip it in the bud sooner. So we agree that that's the strategy to moving forward. Creating and maintaining a highly visible police presence in the neighborhoods is essential to effectively address public safety concerns. Investigative component. As I mentioned already, we closely analyze all weapons-related calls because they serve to provide a lot of useful information to help us target our enforcement efforts. Further analysis of suspects and victims will be conducted to better understand the root causes of the violence and the relationship between the criminal events, which will better enable us to craft targeted intervention. Investigative intelligence, as I mentioned, has identified a significant shift in the gang activity in the past 5 years, which is what I already noted about they are getting involved more deeply in active criminal enterprises. So we're going to take a look at investigative strategies to focus on mid-level offenders to impact these criminal enterprises. So our thought is that we're going to use not only LPD personnel, who we already have assigned to various task forces, but to pull in the resources of those task forces and to work with partner agencies that we have in the past, such as the state police detectives assigned to gangs and narcotics here in Massachusetts. Prevention initiative, if I could cover a couple of those quickly. Not only does the LPD utilize strategic enforcement strategies, but we also recognize this is not the only solution. Therefore, the LPD has worked for years building partnerships with social service agencies, state agencies, and neighborhood groups on funding initiatives that provide opportunities for at-risk and proven risk youth, home visits to proven risk youth and ex-offenders to connect them to services, jobs for at-risk and proven risk youth, counseling services to proven risk youth, outreach and case management, services for domestic violence victims, and services for ex-offenders. And I think it's important to note that since 2007, the Lowell Police Department has successfully secured $19 million in grants to assist in all of these intervention strategies in the city of Lowell, not just hiring personnel, but programs to provide specific resources to the at-risk individuals here in the city. Presently underway in the city is a project to build and enhance the camera infrastructure system. So we've been working on that. What that will do for us, it will allow the Lowell Police Department to add cameras around the city and allow us to increase efficiency in sharing data. It will also allow cameras to be placed in hotspots we previously did not have access to. So that's already underway. That's happening, all right? Most recently, we are, along those same lines, we are currently building out a mobile surveillance platform. We're taking an existing vehicle within the LPD fleet. It's a van, correct, Bill? It's a van that's being outfitted with cameras. This vehicle is going to be it's going to be marked all over, clearly noting that it's a video surveillance vehicle, and it's going to be able to be driven and parked in locations that we deem to be necessary. It's going to serve dual purposes. Number one, we hope it serves as a deterrent. Once people realize they're being filmed, that it'll be a deterrent. But should there be problems, it will serve an evidentiary value because we will have video surveillance available to use for investigation and prosecution. And we'll continue to be committed to social media and using that as a tool both to pump out information to the residents in the city, to the neighborhood groups, but to receive information back. And although it's been a long, slow process to get people to use it, we've talked a lot about texting information, tips to the police department. We finally have people using that technology quite a bit, and it's assisted us in recent investigations. Reentry initiatives. The Lowell Police Department has been awarded $930,000 over the last year and a half for reentry initiatives, and what that means is we provide ex-offenders with services needed to ultimately reduce the recidivism rate in the city. These services include substance abuse, counseling, mental health counseling, jobs, housing, education needs, and case management. So we're doing the best we can to try to stop the cycle. And if we're the conduit to be able to bring in this money to help the city, then that's what we do. An EOPS staffing grant is presently pending, and this will fund foot patrols in hotspot areas of neighborhoods, and it will help retain critical civilian personnel, such as some of the folks here today, actually Robin and others like her, that help us with the analysis and various support functions that are critical inside the police department. We've all heard about the Shannon Community Safety Initiative and the Safe and Successful Youth Initiative. Both of those strategies identify at-risk youth and provide home visits and summer jobs and GED opportunities, truancy prevention, workforce readiness, and so forth. All kinds of support strategies around helping these folks succeed. We have the C-Fire grant that you've heard about that's going to be targeting specifically Centerville neighborhood. The LPD will partner with other city departments as well as local nonprofits to provide a variety of services to Centerville residents. This program will use some of the same strategies we've talked about, community-based crime prevention strategies, but also home visits to ex-offenders, summer jobs for Centerville youth, foreclosure education, community garden, truancy prevention, and a summer camp and mentoring program for the young people over there. Domestic violence, we can't forget about that. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that remains oftentimes a less public problem because it's not occurring necessarily on the streets of the city. We need to remain vigilant as far as domestic violence goes to keep our citizens safe. Since 2011, the LPD has brought in close to $400,000 to help combat domestic violence in the city. The LPD partners with community agencies to provide the following to victims: counseling services, outreach, shelter, and legal advocacy. So while those grants provide specific services, we have other grants that help to maintain increased visibility in the community. We have underage alcohol grants, pedestrian grants, and traffic grants. So that's some of what's going on. I would also like to mention just this week alone here in the city. Starting yesterday, we had the Lowell Youth Development Collaborative that talks about, used to be the manager's gang task force, but it's changed in its concept because the need for the group changed, the focus of the group changed and shifted to follow current issues. So anyway, that occurred yesterday. We talked about upcoming events, what's going on, how we can work together. On Thursday, we've got an opiate prevention session that's occurring here in the city. We've got a gang prevention conference that's going on all day. And in the afternoon, there's a senior safety presentation that's going to occur at the senior center. And on Friday, we have a domestic violence program that's going on here in the city. So that's just this week alone. The police department will be either sponsoring or participating in all of those initiatives. So there's quite a bit going on, and the message I want to send is that we're working very diligently, and everyone remains committed on the police department side. We're not happy about the violence either, and we remain committed to ensure that we're doing the best we can to make the streets of Lowell safer. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chief. If I could just add, I think we should be kept apprised of, you say, the plans to deploy officers with additional overtime money and things coming back to the council. And I appreciate your explanation about the explanation for these incidents. You know, it can appear at times that, you know, you explain something, these people were known to each other, and that means we're complacent, it's going to happen, we don't care. And I accept your explanation. I welcome it, frankly, because I think it's important that people know we do care. We care very much about these incidents, but to stop them, you got to understand how they start. So we appreciate the data and know that you're committed to staying on top of this issue and welcome further information as it develops. So thank you very much. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to thank you for the information sharing tonight by you and prepared by your staff. Yes, I agree with the neighborhood that there is a concern that we must stay on top of it. And on the motion of Councilor Mercier, I will join her in calling back that summit. But not only that, you see, we need to do a follow-up, as Chairman indicated, that we become complacent. The last time we had the summit was many years ago at MCC, where all the people that Councilor Mercier spoke of was there, and the youth group, UTEC, and everyone else. But there doesn't seem to be any follow-up on that. So we need to have a follow-up. I know that you spoke of the youth summit that changed name from the city manager task force, gang task force, to the youth summit. Maybe this is something that, since you already spoke about the if you see something, say something campaign, maybe it ought to be that kind of task force where you then involve not only the law enforcement, the youth organization, but the neighborhood organization and residents who want to be a part. I heard of a number of speakers indicated that they want to be a part of the solution. They want to share information. They want to stay on top of this. And this is something that we need to stay on top. It's an ongoing problem that we all agree in our city, and that we should stay ahead of this problem. And I appreciated the superintendent explanation about the root cause. And I think too is that we can't jump to a conclusion that is because of so many drive-by shooting. Fortunately, the last 6 months we didn't have anyone killed out of it. 10 is a lot, and so because of that, I think we need to continue this dialogue, and this should not be the only meeting. There should be a summit as called for by Councilor Mercier, and a follow-up on that. And, I think we've been the right path if we involve the citizen of Lowell. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Just want to address maybe the superintendent. I appreciate everything that's going on. I never see anything about UMass Lowell. So what's their part in this? Their campus is so big now. I think I should be seeing them on foot patrol. I think I should see their cars. I see the federal, the park rangers pulling people over for maybe traffic violations. So where are they? What's their role? I think that would help out us a lot, the city of Lowell. So why aren't they up there, and why aren't they on foot patrol? Or why don't we know that they have 20 police officers and they're driving around certain routes? I think that's a big, and I could be wrong because maybe it's not up there, but I think that could be a big solution and relieve, the pressure maybe in the downtown or surrounding area on us. And then that gives us more manpower, and then we can focus out into the neighborhood. So could you just address that quickly? Or?
I don't have any information as to what their total staffing looks like. I don't know the size of their department, but as you said, they have a lot of property now, and there's a lot of students, a lot of residents, 24-hour, responsibilities on campus. But I can tell you that they attend every ComStat meeting that we have. There's representation there from the university, and we talk routinely. Deputy Ryan is largely the point of contact with the university police department, and so we have a close working relationship with them. And I think that, as you said, their property is spread out now, and even if they're visible around, I know that I've seen some of the officers making their way back and forth on foot to the different, campuses, if you will, or property. So I think as they spread out and as they do their patrols around their property, it will help us in certain areas around the city. But we do have a close working relationship with them, and we work quite well together over in the Pawtuckaville area around the student concerns there and the noise, and they come with us on all the calls, and they then take administrative action at the university if there are students living off campus creating disturbances in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. That's going to have to be the last word.
Yeah.
I think, there's obviously going to be more to come on this topic and other topics, so.
But I just had one more thing.
Councilor Mercier?
I'm sorry. I just have one last comment. I don't ever want anybody to think that we believe the police are not doing their job. That is far from this scenario here. We know that your life is in danger. We know that. But tonight we heard some good things. We heard about camera infrastructure, because people aren't talking, but the camera is talking, and that is very important. And if we can have a campaign to go after the double poles and to add more accepted streets, we can have a campaign to add more cameras. Because I believe if you're not doing anything wrong, I don't care if they're all over the place, but I want the bad guy. I want the bad guy. So thank you for everybody being here. This is a part of what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Councilor Noon?
Mr. Chairman, Councilor Elliott.
Before we conclude, can you tell me how many police officers, patrol officers there are on the street? Not 111F, not, how many people, how many officers are in cars patrolling the neighborhoods during each shift?
All right. Well, there are 11 patrol districts in the city. At certain times of the day, in the early evening, 5 of those districts double up, so that's 16 officers plus supervisors. So there's anywhere from 3 to 5 supervisors on the road. You also have community response, which is our gang unit. There are still actively 6 officers assigned to that unit with a supervisor working mostly the early evening shift. So they're out there. So that's another complement of officers, uniformed officers available. And different times of the day, you've got different units out there also uniformed. You have the warrant unit, and so forth. So the traffic, and a significant amount of traffic response on the day shift and early nights as well.
Okay, first, let me thank you for the information. I think data is always helpful, but I also think that sometimes just some logic, just some sheer logic makes a lot of sense too. You know, a couple of things. You know, when a couple of neighborhood leaders came up, and I agree with them, we've had a lot of meetings, we get a lot of statistics, and it seems like we're not making progress. And I also believe there's a sentiment that one of the neighborhood leaders expressed. People are giving up. They're giving up. They're finding a way to cope with the violence that's taken place, and that's wrong. That's not a way. Someone shouldn't have to run into their house because they hear shots. That is completely unacceptable. And that's maybe why I think this is the paramount issue that we are faced with, and we need to get a handle. No one should have to live that way. You just gave me a description of the number of officers. I think that number is extremely low. I mean, to me, the best deterrent, and I know everyone you can't have a police officer everywhere all the time. The best deterrent to crime, to criminals, is police presence. The reason why I feel, and maybe the neighborhood leaders feel, that people are giving up, and it's not apathy, is because response. I can tell you time and time again, there's not enough officers to respond to a call. Somebody sees some community, the basis of community policing years ago was community precincts and response, that there were enough police officers on staff, sworn officers, to respond. And I mean, the criminals know when they make a call and nobody shows up. I mean, they're as smart as we are. They know what's going on, and they know if there are not enough police officers in the streets, then they're going to do it, and they're going to try to get away with it, and they're going to push the envelope. And I think that's what happened. I think there is a sense that the element in this city feels that they can get away with it, so they're going to continue to do it. So that's why I say, Mr. Manager, I have to tell you, I can't believe that you said that you don't think that we need more officers to solve this problem. I couldn't disagree with you more. I think more officers. Is it going to solve the problem? No, I don't think so. But we need the community to get involved. We can't solve this alone. You can't solve it alone. And if we want the community to engage, they want to make phone calls, we need officers available to respond to that. It seems like it's just a basic premise in order to respond, to let them know someone's going to be there and someone's going to get you. So, thank you. I appreciate my time.
Manager.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me be clear. I don't know if I said we don't need more officers. I'm not sure that's the answer. I think that there's more in play here that we need to consider. I do think the participation of the neighborhoods, never mind the neighborhoods, the residents is essential. They need to speak out. When something happens, they need to let the police know about it. When an incident occurs, they have to come forward and testify. Those are the types of things that we need. We need to do any number of different things. Councilor, with all due respect, I came forward to the City Council a couple of years ago with an increase in the police budget for police overtime so we could have more police on the street, and you voted against it. I came forward a second time in the fall of that year with additional overtime to replace what had been cut by the City Council, and you voted against it. So to have you sit here tonight and tell me that somehow I don't want to dedicate the resources, but you do, the facts say something different.
I will defend I don't think overtime solves the problem. And guess what? Clearly it hasn't.
Well, actually, if you look at the
Overtime's
numbers,
not
if you
even
look at the
close.
numbers, if you look at the numbers, in fact, the statistics do show, and I know you don't want to look at, you say you don't
No,
want to look at
I let
data,
you
you want to use logic. I don't know what you use logic on if you're not dealing with real facts.
Mr. Manager, you have any shootings in your neighborhood? You got anybody breaking and entering?
Yes.
I live here. I know what it's like. I hear it from the residents. Perhaps you don't. You pack it up and leave at 5 a.m. The rest of us are here dealing with this problem. Don't tell me about overtime and voting for it. Put more police officers on. That's what we want. That's what's going to combat the problem.
If you look at the
If
literature...
you don't want to look at any other evidence, look at it.
Council, if you look at the literature, the approach of using dedicated resources for dedicated times, such as through overtime, is a much more effective way of dealing with the problem than just simply throwing money at people that may be on the clock when nothing is happening. We want people on the street when something is happening. And I do take offense to the fact that you try to throw out that I somehow don't care because I don't happen to have an address here in the city of Lowell. Councilor, you know yourself that you used to be the town administrator in Groton. You didn't live there. Are you telling me you didn't care about the people in Groton when you were there?
I did move there, as a matter of fact, Mr. Manager. Check the record, but I live here now. And this is a red herring. You're not here. You been on South Loring Street at night when it's dark? You been on Salem Street?
Yes, I have.
Because I'm there regularly, and I hear it from the people. Maybe you don't, but for you to say you don't want more police officers,
I want more police coverage.
That makes no sense. And that tells me that, you know what, you don't get the message, and that you don't understand how the people feel in the city. Throw as much overtime as you want at it. It's not solving the problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, sir. I know we all been affected by this drive-by shooting. Beating each other is not going to solve this problem. I know everyone in the city care. All the police force care. They all may not be living in Lowell, but they do care, and I trust them. So there's a lot more to say on this topic. Unfortunately, because of the timing, we need to continue this dialogue soon. Because the timing again for the council meeting, may I ask Mr. Chairman that we adjourn the meeting and table the rest of the agenda, the rest of the item on the agenda for the next meeting. If we can set up the next meeting for next week, that'd be great.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Noon.
Second.
Second by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Appreciate everybody's participation in this meeting, the residents who spoke and members of the police department. Thank you all for being here. We'll have more to say in the near future. Thank you.